All right, we are back.
Nice.
Revinyl. We're still at it. They're not stopping us. We're going to keep bringing this week after week of awesome music stuff. I
That's
love doing this. I'm so grateful every week when I look at our downloads and just go, man, people are listening. That's awesome. And thank you for everyone that listens.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for indulging us, for being entertained or annoyed. I know some people like to listen to what they're annoyed, so that's fine. But however we entertain you, that's great.
So my wife should listen to this then, because she's typically annoyed by me. So maybe she hears me enough. She doesn't need to hear me anymore. But yeah, I had so much fun last week with our Rolling Stone. We're going to revisit that in the near future. Would love feedback from people. What we talked about to do today, something a little different. You and I, every week, we go back and forth with the uncut and all these different things, and talk about some of these bands with crazy names that have come up and that we have never heard of. But then we talk too about there's so much knowledge that we have just on bands through the years. I mean, I've been collecting vinyl for years. You collect vinyl and you worked in record stores for years. And there's a lot of stuff out there that we love that most people, 99% of the population, have never even heard of. There are bands that we are mad about that only the friends and family of the band might know about them at this point, that
sad.
people forgotten about even from 20, 30 years ago. And we started talking about it one day and thought that'd be cool to just do our top 10. And it doesn't even have to be absolute top 10, because I can guarantee you when I finish my list up today, next week or tomorrow, I'll walk around and go, oh, I should have included this one. You'll do that too.
Oh, it's all about mood, and there's too many. Like I love lists and I hate them at the same time. Like, I went ahead and ranked mine, and you're like, I didn't rank mine. And I'm like, damn it, why did I rank mine? Because it was painful. It's painful to kind of to pick one. It's like picking your, I'm going to compare it to picking your favorite child, which you shouldn't have a favorite child. But anyway.
Right. Or your favorite animal, your favorite pet, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough on some of these things too, and a lot of it, I think you'll find for me, goes back to a particular period in time where I was more of a sponge of music back then than I was now. And that says a lot, because I'm still absorbing as much as I can get.
You absorb a lot.
So yeah, I mean, it's tough. There's another list I've even thought about. How do we follow this up? I would love to take some of the other things that didn't quite make that top 10 list and maybe bring them back up later. So
yeah, I agree. One of the things that we do when we talk about show ideas, and then we'll jump into things, but I try to think of and present back to you ideas, and you do the same, where we go, what is something that we would want to listen to? If I were going to, out in podcast world looking for a podcast, I would love to hear two other people that are really into music like we are, that have been doing this for a long time, to tell me what are some albums that I should know about that I have no idea. So I'm with you. I don't always it's a love-hate relationship with lists, especially when I have to produce one. It's a love-hate. But at the same time, this is the kind of stuff that I look for when I'm out looking for new. And I thought specifically about some of the younger people that are listening to this podcast. This could be really beneficial for them, because we're going to talk about some bands that, quite frankly, there are people 18, 19, 21 years old. These albums came out before they were born or when they were babies, and they may have never heard these, but we might be able to make some connections on what it recommended if you like kind of thing as we go through this. So I'm excited, Craig. I'm really excited. You always come up with some great obscure stuff. So the idea here, so everyone knows, Craig has 10, I have 10. My criteria is a little different than Craig's, and we can explain that real quickly, but basically it's 10 albums that we absolutely love, that either we own on vinyl or we want to own on vinyl or hope comes out on vinyl at some point if it's not. But it's 10 albums that we absolutely love, that almost, like I said, 99, maybe even 99.9% of the population wouldn't even be familiar with.
Absolutely.
So with that,
Yeah.
You're going to go, and instead of you doing plowing through 10 through 1 or 1 through 10, whatever, you're going to do one, I'll do one, and we'll just swap back and forth so no one gets sick of why is Craig talking for 12 straight minutes and we're not hearing from Shawn? Or more likely, why is Shawn talking for 10 straight minutes
No, I
and
think you had it
we
right
don't
the
hear
first.
from Craig?
I think you had it right
All
the
right.
first time too.
Well, you get to go first, so
Okay. All
jump
right.
in.
So just to let you know, it ended up being an even split for me. So 5 of my 10 I own, the other 5 I don't. 3 of them have never been on vinyl. So set that up. But the first one is on vinyl. It is essentially the original release of this album. It's a band called the Day Sleepers. It's Drowned in a Sea of Sound from 2008. Um, they only have one other album aside from this. It's called Creation from 2018. This album is quite honestly just one of the best shoegaze records, period. These guys are amazing. It's on Tone Vendor and Claire Records. So anything on Claire Records is usually dream pop shoegaze. It is amazing. And um, if you're going to listen to a particular song, listen to The Secret Place. That song will absolutely just, I mean, everything on here, Megaton Supernova, the whole thing is just amazing. But these guys did it right. They took everything from Slow Dive and just made it deeper. Love it.
You turned me on to them. I like them a lot. And honestly, I really need to go back and re-listen to them. I have it on. You gave me a copy of it on CD. You must have given me that when you bought the vinyl,
Yeah.
because one of the last times I saw you, you handed me a stack of CDs. Like, here you go, Shawn. Hope you
Yeah.
enjoy. And that was one of them. And I listened to it and I really liked it. But I just like you, we always listening to music. I need to go back and listen to it. But I remember going, yeah, these guys are really good.
Yeah.
Where are they from? Do you know?
I think they're actually from the States. That's a good question.
Okay. Such a great
I don't
name.
think they're from, yeah, Day Sleepers is like, how is that not taken, right? You mentioned that last week about a band that you're like, that seems like the perfect band name for a shoegaze band.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Well, and especially Buffalo, okay. Well,
Yeah.
especially because Day Sleeper being the song by REM, which I love so much.
Yep.
The moment that song came out, you're thinking, okay, that's a great name for a band. So that's cool. Okay.
Yep.
All right. I've got the album here. This one, of all the albums that I mentioned today, or all the artists that I'm going to mention today, this one might be actually the most well known, but I would still say pretty obscure. And this is the record that started it all for me. So it has a special place in my heart. But that is Pernice Brothers, World Won't End.
Yep. I love that.
I Oh my gosh. I mean, right out of the gate, and for anyone that doesn't know about Pernice Brothers, so we've talked about Pernice Brothers on this podcast. Joe Pernice, he's a brilliant, brilliant songwriter, and he's done Chappaquiddick Skyline. He's got all these different offshoots: Chappaquiddick Skyline, Scud Mountain Boys, solo stuff under just Joe Pernice. But Pernice Brothers, to me, is the best stuff. I don't know if there's some magic behind that, but to me, his best work. I love the other stuff, but the first couple of Pernice Brothers albums are the best. And there's a couple of songs on here. Working Girls is the first song on this album. And the second that I heard it, I didn't know anything about Pernice Brothers. I just stumbled upon it. And that was the first song I played, first song I listened to. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've just found my next favorite band.
Yeah.
That song alone did it. So for anyone who wants to discover Pernice Brothers, check out Working Girls. I mean, if you're going to listen to one song, try that. I don't know what it's rated on Spotify and Apple in terms of their song popularity. That's the song. They get at times really slow, but it never. I love his voice. His voice is unique. I
Mm-hmm.
love the arrangements, and his style of writing is so good. So that's my first one, Craig.
Sweet.
I know you love them too.
Good call. Yeah. Had that on CD and absolutely loved it. That's probably my favorite album from them too.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Absolutely.
Number 9.
Number
9.
9.
Is one I don't own. They seem to flip flop here, and I really put them in order, not intentionally that way, but they seem to flip flop back and forth. This is from a band I discovered on a particular label. Um, God, it was Rainbow Quartz was the label. I had discovered this band called 3410s and loved them, and discovered that this label specialized in psych, kind of indie psych rock. This band is definitely more in the power pop slash. They get psychedelic and shoegazy for sure, but very very power pop and influenced. That's the backbone of this music. It is. I think this particular album is their second album, sophomore album. Yeah, they continue to release albums to this day, but on a very sporadic basis. But this one's called The High Dials. The album is War of the Awakening Phantoms from 2005. It is not available on vinyl at this point, but their debut album just got a re-release. It was like an anniversary release, so maybe, because I think this one is really seen as their crowning moment. So yeah,
Yeah.
the High Dials, War of the Awakening Phantoms from 2005. I mean, dude, they're a great band.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll go with you. I'll pick one that I own on CD. It's out there on vinyl. I don't think it's ever been re-released, and it's really expensive to own, but I will own it at some point. I know this is a band that you love. I think this particular album, it's one of the best records of the early 2000s without a doubt, and that's Idlewild 100 Broken Windows
Yeah.
from 2000. That album hit me like, oh man, when I heard it, it sounds to me almost as if Michael Stipe from REM fronted a heavier band. That's what it sound. This particular album sounds like. Their sound changed over time, as you know. I don't think they ever got close again to sounding as good as they did on, because 100 Broken Windows to me, and it's Idlewild for those who don't know, all one word, IDLEWILD. They perfected the balance between harmony, melody, and just sometimes absolute brutal guitars and music. And they combine, like Rosability is a
Mm-hmm.
song I'm thinking of right off the top. They just had this sound that was just perfect for someone who didn't want to go too heavy all the time or too light all the time. It was, again, it was like matching, it's like REM and Nirvana. If REM and Nirvana came together,
Yeah, I can see
I
that.
mean, what do you think?
Well, so that's on my second tier. It almost made my list, and it was very, very close. That's another one I would feature. It's one I do want on vinyl. My notes are sophomore album, 6 subsequent albums, but nothing quite on this level. It
Yeah.
is like Little Discourage. The way that
Oh my
kicks off the
gosh.
album is like the minute I heard that, I go, "This is my favorite new band." Like at that
Yep.
moment, I was like, "This is my favorite new band."
Yeah.
The only
I
reason
played it.
they lost favor with me is I really wanted to like the next album, the remote part, and it's
Uh-huh.
good. It's just sounds so watered down compared. It's like they couldn't quite recapture that energy.
Yeah, I used to listen to, when I listen, and we'll move on, but 100 Broken Windows, when I listened to it, I kept thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, these guys would be so incredible live." That album sounds very live in studio. You know how sometimes, I've said it
Yeah,
before, there's some albums I listen to and just feel like, some albums, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but a Radiohead album, that you can listen to it and go, "This is sonically incredible," but they had to sort of piece things together to make it sound a certain way. With a band like Idlewild, it just sounds like they walked in the studio and just boom, they just did it,
went
and it just,
Yep.
I couldn't get enough of it. I was obsessed with that album for a while because it scratched every itch, the REM itch, the harder itch. They had great lyrics, great vocals, everything. So yeah,
Yep.
that's cool that I knew we'd both have it on our list, I figured.
All right.
All right,
Well,
back to you.
Number 8, and this is one I know you like. I don't know if you quite like it as much as I do, but when this is one of this, and this is the earliest album on my list. They only put out 2 albums in the 90s. This is from 1991, and I remember being at a record store. This is before the single came out. I remember being in a record store, and 3 songs in, I go, I have to own this. Who is this? And the guy told me who it was, bought it immediately. Hook, line, and sinker. It was his Beta Band's 3 EPs moment, right? Um,
Mm,
and that is
good stuff.
School of Fish, the
Oh,
self-titled School of Fish record.
yep,
This album to me was such a hidden gem of the 90s. Like I said, 1991, so we're still kind of in that the grunge era. We haven't quite,
yeah,
in fact, we're really thick in it.
yeah,
And I just remember thinking, like, this is so different. It's so refreshing. I was really starting to embrace my kind of power pop. This isn't totally power pop, but it is 90s kind of alt pop.
yep.
If you know a song, you would know Three Strange Days. Um, Rose Colored Glasses was on, I think, the what was the name of that movie? Clueless. I think it was on Clueless, if I'm not mistaken. If you
Yeah.
ever watched that movie, that's a classic movie, by the way. Um,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, Rose Colored Glasses fell in Euphoria the way it caps the album off. Speechless. It is so
Oh,
well written.
speechless.
Speechless is just that's a song that just kind of floats. Just it's like perfect, and you know there's a little wailing guitar in the background while another guy strums another guitar. It's just it is absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, Josh Clayton Felt ended up passing away of colon cancer or testicular cancer. Both of them are excruciating.
Really young. Was he even 30 years old? I
Yeah,
don't think he was even 30.
yeah, he didn't quite make 30. That he died in 2000.
Yeah.
They did put out a second album, much heavier album called Human Cannonball in 1993. It's a great album, but it's you could tell that was a reaction to the time because
Right.
grunge was so popular. You saw a lot of bands do this, and I think they did it successfully to a certain degree. But this album was so good, it was just hard to touch. So but you know, some
And
people will probably say the same thing about the Posies from going from Deer 23 to
yeah.
Frosting on the Beater, and I think Frosting on the Beater eclipses Deer 23 ever so slightly. So yeah,
Yeah, I
fish.
agree. They kinda remind me I mean, Posies are more power pop, but there's a similar sort of thing, School of Fish and the Posies for sure.
Yep.
Josh Clayton Felt also had a posthumous, I believe,
He,
solo record.
he
Was
I
it
don't think it I
maybe
don't
or
he
was he still alive when it was
I think it
released?
was he was still alive when it was released. I think he did have a follow up to it that was
Okay.
I can't remember what the name of that first one was, but yeah, he was still alive at the time. It was good. It didn't capture what they captured with the band itself, but it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, and last point on that, and I'll jump to mine. When people listening to this go, School of Fish, Josh Clayton Felt, never heard of him. Trust me, if he would not have passed at such an early age, way more people would know about either that band or about him
Yep.
because he was an extreme talent. His songwriting, his voice was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The
Very
guy was.
unique.
It's such a shame. I mean, you got guys that pass from other things, maybe just partying too much. This was a guy who could have been a rock and roll star that just something really tragic and sad happened that just snuck up on him, and it's really heartbreaking. But I'm glad you mentioned that one. I love School of Fish. Okay, well, this is a segue. Another guy who passed way, way, way before his time. Have you ever heard of a guy named Jim Sullivan?
Oh my gosh, we were just talking about him the other day. Yep.
Man, I love him. Oh my gosh. This album is called UFO. This was released. Light in the Attic did a re release of this. This is a Vinyl Me Please version. I have to go back and look at the year. I actually didn't write it down. Really early 70s, but this guy disappeared. I don't think they ever found his body.
They
They
didn't.
found his car.
Yep.
I I will just say this, and we won't get too long winded about it. I listened to him because the story was so crazy that he's at what and is somewhere out in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. His car was there, his belongings were in the car, but no one ever found him. No one really knows what happened to him. I started listening to the album and I thought, this is one of the best, and I'm categorized, I hate to, but singer-songwriter albums, one of the best I've ever heard. Both of his records. I mean, but UFO in particular for me, I absolutely love.
It's excellent. Yeah. So I listened to this guy, and some people might know him. His name is Jesse Woods. He had a song called Gold in the Gold in the Evening or something. I'm horrible about drawing a blank recently, but it was played. It was one of those songs that was played in a Volkswagen commercial.
Okay.
Just like Pink Moon from Nick Drake, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that commercial exposed people to a lot of people to Nick Drake. They'd never heard him before. And
Right. Right.
this song I thought was equal the impact on me. I was like, man. So I've been buying Jesse Wood stuff, and he's another one of those guys that releases stuff very sporadically. He put up a follow album. I was like, oh man, this is completely, I missed this song. And I remember listening to it distinctly because he does a cover of UFO, the song UFO on it.
Mm.
And I thought, this is his crown and jewel. This might be the best song he's written. And I looked at it, it's like, Jim Sullivan. Somebody was just telling me about Jim Sullivan, and it was, I think Kevin and I were going back and forth, and we just brought up, some albums that we're doing a thing where we're going 1960 to present, and we're going to present something to you that's either overlooked or underrated. And we both selected for 1966 the same album, but he
Mm.
switched at the last minute. So he's like, hold on, I know what you're going with. He wrote it down, and I go, it's this. And I'm not going to say it because who knows, it might be on your list. And he's like, yes, yes, yes. I literally just switched. It was hilarious. And we talked about moments. And to us, the equivalent of that album was Jim Sullivan's UFO, discovering that after
Yeah.
the fact. And like,
Yeah.
why are people not talking about that? And then we talked about the Bobby Charles album. It's like,
Yeah.
how are people not talking about Bobby Charles? So yeah.
I mean, yeah, and I know a lot of people go, if you've never listened to Jim Sullivan, you're listening to this podcast, go check him out. I promise you, if you like that type of introspective, just it's just good. It's the kind of music you can sit on your back porch and just listen to in the evening. It's just good music. But honestly, and I looked it up, 69 is when it originally came out. I like him better than Nick Drake. I'm just saying, a lot of people will say that's awful for me to say, but I just, Jim Sullivan to me, something about his voice and his delivery style I
Yeah.
like even better than Nick Drake. And I do like Nick Drake, but Jim Sullivan, it floored me when I heard him. So anyway, that's
Nice. Good call. I think
yeah.
that excellent album. All right. So going back to the flip flop and flipping to an album that I don't own because it's never been put out on vinyl. I don't know if it ever will. It was his fourth and last solo album, but he's still around because he's in a band called The Sea and Cake, and that is Archer Pruitt. Put out an album called Wilderness in 2004. I'm telling you, this album is an absolute masterpiece, and I think that's the reason why maybe it was his last solo album from 2004. Sadly, dude, it's incredible. And I think he realized, like, this is the best I can do, and nobody's nobody. I
Yeah.
might as well just keep playing with Sea and Cake and make my money. And
Right.
he's just the epitome of an artist. He does graphic design. He does a little bit of everything. So don't get me wrong. And Sea and Cake is one of those bands that's just kind of a cult indie band that's been around forever. They're always going to have their niche audience like me. But this album is different. It is not, it has a completely different vibe. It is um, more orchestral and just the layers to it. It's definitely more of a pop record than what Sea and Cake have done.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Every time I listen to it, I keep looking for, they got to reissue it. They got to reissue it. They reissued it. His previous album called 3 is fantastic. I think that's what All Music says you go with is 3, and I own it. It's fantastic. But this is on a whole different level. There are moments like, and if you're gonna, God, man, it's hard to pick a song, but I think Judy Judy would definitely be up there. Um, Oh, Kentucky would be another one. There's so many, but Judy Judy's one of those songs where it's going a certain direction, and then all of a sudden he speeds it up, and just it's so unexpected and so unconventional. But you're like, oh man, I'm glad he did that, and he only does it for like a stanza, and then that's it. It's just awesome. I love that record. I remember listening to that because we immersed myself so much into His Golden Messenger when you and I went to go see him at Georgia Theater, or not Georgia Theater, at 40 Watt.
Yeah.
And on the way home, I'm like, I just want to listen to something different. What's in that same vibe? And that pulled up, and I go, oh, this is perfect. And I meant to tell you, like, you should
Mm.
listen to this. When you get tired of His Golden Messenger, listen to this record and you will love it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That's all you needed to say, because you and I love His Golden Messenger. That's could have made my list, actually. I didn't even think about him, but that's another one. I've seen him in concert twice now, and that his band is incredible.
Yep.
All right, next one up for me from 2003. I don't own it because it's not on vinyl. Is a band called Mayflies USA.
Oh,
Are
yep.
you familiar with them?
Yep.
Okay. Well, first, right out of the gate, love the name, because there's no Mayflies UK as far as I know. They were just being silly to call their band Mayflies USA. As anyone who listens to music, especially back it seemed like in the 90s, there would be, like Charlatans UK versus just Charlatans, and there's been a few others along the way
Yep.
where they had to change it and add UK to their name. But Mayflies USA, to me, so the album is Walking in a Straight Line. They were never better. That album to me is so incredible. 2003, the title track, Walking in a Straight Line. There's another song there called Good Girls Goodbye that just I love that record so much. It reminds me of they're definitely power pop.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of if Old 97s did just a pure power pop album, or just a Rhett Miller solo record, which to me is a little more, less cowpunk or country,
Yep.
the Rhett Miller solo stuff. That's what they sound like to me. They sound like a power pop Old 97s type band. And I love this record. I used to listen to it. Surprisingly, it's never even been re-released on CD. It's Yep Rock, I think, originally Records put it out 2003. They do have a couple of albums out, some of their later releases, and they're actually getting ready to release a new album. I think it's been 20 plus years, and they're getting ready to release an album I think in the next couple of weeks in May.
Cool.
So I'll be checking that out. I would love to see them live. Man, do I love them. So, and I think they're from North Carolina, but if you like power pop, Mayflies USA, Walking in a Straight Line.
Very cool. I have to go back and listen to that. That when I was in my like power pop infatuation, that's all I listened to for about a year. They
Yeah.
they were in constant rotation. All right, moving on to number 6. It looks like this is also a member of Sea and Cake. This is an album I have referenced many, many times. In fact, I think Shawn and Kevin would probably be surprised that this is not number 1, because I listened. This album is as precious to me as any album out there. I put it at 6 only because it's not as conventional. It's a little bit. It's not really mostly instrumental, but a lot of what makes it gives it its flair and gives it its essence really is the instrumental aspects to it. It's almost like listening to a jazz band that gets into an ambient type textures, and that's Sam Prekop. It's a self-titled
Yep.
album. It is on Thrill Jockey from 1999. Phenomenal. He is still putting out albums. He had a second album. This was his first. His second album is called Who's the New Professor. Excellent album. Those are probably the only two albums that are close to Sea and Cake. This is very similar and adjacent to what Sea and Cake does, as opposed to the Archer Pruitt stuff, which is definitely more pop oriented. He puts out albums now, but it's almost all electronic and ambient. It's like he's abandoned that stage because I do what I do for Sea and Cake, and I'm going to go do something completely just off the cuff. And it's cool. It's good. But this to me is a sweet spot. Story about this is I bought this from a used record store, the original location of Ella Guru. Bought it on CD. The year it was not the year it was released, 3 years later, because it was our anniversary. And Rebecca and I were driving. We're driving to Asheville, and she fell asleep. And I listened to this album, and this is pre GPS. I didn't have a Garmin. If you know what a Garmin is, I didn't have navigation. So literally, I have this map written out, and I just forgot what I was doing. I was so into this album that I just zoned out and just drove. I think I drove around the square of where we ate. It's ridiculous. So I got us probably an hour and a half lost.
Yeah, you're
It was
supposed to
that
be in
good.
North Carolina, and she's like, "Honey, why are we in Ohio?"
Yeah. Yeah. Somehow we've made it to South Carolina. What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. It's just a phenomenal album. We're going to the beach. In fact, by the time this airs, I'll be at the beach, and I can't guarantee that as you're listening to this, I might be listening to that. So
There you go. You really might, because you've been talking about it. I have to sit down and absorb this album. You've talked about it for years, and out of respect for our friendship and my respect for your taste in music, I really need to sit down and I got to put it on the list. Yeah, I will.
awesome.
I got to do it.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
This is one of my favorites. So I mean, they're all my favorites, but this one because I used to get what did I used to get? I think it was either it was Uncut Magazine back in the day, and they still do it actually. Uncut Magazine comes with a CD every month. So
Oh,
when you get Uncut Magazine,
it
and
still
if you
comes
go
with
on
a CD
Barnes and
now?
Noble, yeah, yeah, they
Awesome.
used to do it in a hard jewel case, which was wild back in the
Yeah.
late '90s, early 2000s. Now it just comes in a little cardboard sleeve.
Yep.
But I used to, when I had more time on my hands, I would devour it every month. I'd put the CD in, I'd listen to it while I was reading the magazine, and I found so many great artists at the time that, thank goodness, there was a magazine such as Uncut that was out there unearthing stuff. Yeah, they have Pram at number 220 or whatever that we never heard of. But in the meantime, they have a lot of other great stuff that they put. So there was this one month where I'm listening to this, and it's this guy with this just angelic voice, and it's not just him and an acoustic guitar. There's other stuff going on, but the song that they chose for the compilation that month was the title track of this album, so his debut album, Dressed Up Like Nebraska, and that's Josh Rouse.
Yes.
Josh is now pretty, I mean, he may be the most well-known of any of the artists that I'm mentioning here, but most people don't know this record.
Mhm.
This record, and this is Run Out Groove did a remastered version of this recently. This came out in '98, and no one paid attention to this when it came out. I listened to it, and that song, Dressed Up Like Nebraska. Do you know that song? Are you familiar with it?
I love that album. He used to be one of my
Um,
favorites for sure.
okay, good. Late Night Conversation.
Mhm.
It's and it's so, later he got into more production and more of maybe even a pop sound. Love 1972. That's a great record, but nothing will ever match this because it really, what it reminds me of? It reminds me a little bit of the Bon Iver debut album, For Emma Forever Ago.
Yeah.
When I hear it, I think this guy's in a cabin somewhere recording this. It felt very spare, even with the other instruments around it. It was so organic sounding,
Yeah.
and it sounded. There's even one place where I could hear where they messed up in the mixing, and I can hear a little separation. I've just listened to the album so many times, but there's a charm to it with that too. That it
I
seems
agree.
so DIY.
Yep.
I love this record. So for anyone out there, if you love, again, great singer songwriter, I hate to say it because the album's called Dressed Up Like Nebraska, but probably for people that like, to me, he has something about his songwriting in the early days, especially a Springsteen type feel. He builds great imagery with his words.
Yep.
I love him, but at the same time, there's something different about him. And this record, it'll be hard for him to ever top that. So Josh Rouse, Dressed Up Like Nebraska.
Awesome. Yeah, that's probably my favorite. It's definitely up there.
Yeah.
I do love 1972 because I think you and I talked about this one time. It was kind of like that was like his equivalent of what Black Keys did when they moved
Yeah.
on to what's the big album? Not El Camino, but the one before it.
Oh, brother, was it Brothers and Sisters?
Brothers, yeah,
No. Oh,
Brothers.
yeah, Brothers, yeah.
Um,
I'm thinking of the wrong thing.
Whereas they went in such a different direction, but it needed to happen. And I think for
Yeah.
Josh, maybe it needed to happen with 1972. And I still love that album. That came out right before I opened my own store personally, so it's got some sentimental attachment. But I think that run he had of Home, Dressed Up Like Nebraska, and Under the Cold Blue Stars, I think those three
Mm.
albums are his best work.
Yeah,
Hands down.
I love that. That is a, and I'm going to talk about another artist in a minute, which had a similar run to me.
Yeah.
Those three records that actually, I think Home is better in some ways than Dressed Up Like Nebraska because he was a little more mature songwriter and the production's a little better.
Yeah.
But there's always a special place in my heart for Dressed Up Like Nebraska because of the way
Oh,
it sounds.
yeah, I agree. I
So, yeah,
Dressed Up My Nebraska is hands down my favorite as I think about it. Because every time I go back and listen to it, it just get I harken back for him to write like that again. Because I
yeah,
mean I owned Nashville, Sub to Tulo, Country House, City Mount. I owned all that stuff, and I finally just got to the
yeah.
point where it's just not the same anymore. So
It's not. I'll say this last thing before you move on. Dressed Up Like Nebraska, and I think the same thing with Bon Iver with For Emma Forever Ago. That kind of record can only be made once in your career because unless you never take off to the next level, because that was again so DIY. I hate to keep using that term,
right,
but that's the kind of thing where you almost have to be a starving artist type of thing to create an album like Dressed Up Like Nebraska.
right,
It's that one that you probably the songs you've been writing since you were 15 years old, and you're going to do it on a shoestring budget. There's just something, there's a charm about that
yeah,
particular record and the way it's recorded that
I
he
agree.
could never recreate that now. So, all right,
I think so too. Awesome
back
choice.
to you.
Um, all right. So number five for me, and this is an artist I've mentioned him before. In fact, I mentioned him recently because they just re-released an album that he was a part of for Record Store Day. That album probably would supplant this. It is that good, and that's the Grays Rochambeau. That album is absolutely flawless. It's brilliant from start to finish. All three of the primary songwriters, John Bryan, Jason Faulkner, Buddy, I can't think of his last name. I should totally know his name. Um, all three of them do such a phenomenal job on that record. But of course, I'm talking about Jason Faulkner. This is his second record called Can You Still Feel?
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Now, his first album called Presents Author Unknown is awesome. It's awesome. In fact, that once again, that's the all music one you go to. It's a toss up. This is where I discovered him. So sentimentally, this is the album for me. And I just think the songwriting, he is one of the best pop songwriters because he has the melodies that you expect from a Jellyfish, who he was a part of. He was on their first album. Um, and Beatles and stuff like that, but he has a heavier edge to him that's really cool. Just such a phenomenal songwriter, great singer, great guitar player. He plays guitar and tours with Beck. So he's still out there doing it, but I want him to release more albums. He's only really released four. He did a Bedtime with the Beatles album. He did 2 volumes of that. So if you take those aside, I think he only has 4 studio albums, and I own 2 of them, and it's the only 2 you can get. But
Yeah.
this to me, Can You Still Feel, is this was him going for, all right, somebody's going to listen to me in 1999. Somebody's going to listen to this album and they're going to appreciate me. And it just never happened. So love that dude.
Criminal.
Yep.
Criminal. I mean, the guy's so good. His voice is good. His songwriting is incredible. Not sure how he's not a household name, but you know what? He's ours. So,
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
I love him. I love Jellyfish so much. All right. My next one I don't own. I do own it on CD. Well, I'm pausing for a second. Did I buy an old copy? No, I did buy an old copy and I just don't have it here with me. Okay. So this band is near and dear to me. They are to you as well. They're so obscure that I've even talked to people. They're from the UK. I've talked to music fans that are from England that are of the similar age and stuff, and we'll be talking about music and talking about pretty obscure stuff, and I go, "Oh, what about the sound? Do you like the sound?" And they're like, "What? The
Right.
what? The
Yeah.
sound." And they have no idea what I'm talking about. I know you love the sound.
Yeah.
The album though, and I bring them up because you and I have always been fans of theirs, but the album that I love is actually the second to the last record is called Thunder Up. 1987, I think it's the 5th record. It's not the one the critics love,
From the lion's mouth.
what From Lion's Mouth and All Fall Down, I think is the name of the other, Jeopardy.
Yep. Jeopardy.
They
Yep.
love those records, and no one ever talks about Thunder Up. Thunder Up to me was they took a shot at being more of an arena band,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave it a go, and I love that album. It has so much emotion. For those that don't know, the sound were early to late 80s, then they broke up, and then Adrian Borland, who was the lead singer, and I'm assuming probably the principal songwriter, actually committed suicide, and I think it was in 99.
Hmm.
It's such a horrible, tragic loss because what a talent he was, and the world doesn't know enough about him. But that band, for anyone that likes sort of, I always thought they were the connection between Joy Division and Echo and the Bunnymen. They were kind of
Definitely Echo.
that, yeah, definitely Echo. They were dark, sort of like Joy Division, darker.
Yeah.
They were a darker version of Echo and the Bunnymen in my mind.
Yep.
And I just love them. I love their records, but for me, Thunder Up was the record. I used to listen to it obsessively.
I love going for the underdog. That's an underdog record for them, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
awesome.
That's why I picked that one. All right, back to you.
All right, number 4, and this is a band that I loved. Their debut album is one of my favorite debut albums of all time. I would own it. It's insanely expensive. I'm hoping they will reissue it, but nobody knows them, and they should know them. It came out in 2003. That's The Stills. Logic Will Break Your Heart. Telling you this album. So Stephen Hyden and Ian Cohen have a podcast called IndieCast, and this album is on their Hall of Fame. Has been since day one. The IndieCast Hall of Fame. It's on there, and that's what made me okay. I like these guys. They said that I like these guys. Nobody talks about this band. Their follow-up album pissed me off so bad. It's horrible. I don't like it. It's called Without Feathers. I am appalled that out of all 3 albums, it's the one that gets the highest rating on Pitchfork. I lost a little bit of respect for him. One of the other players ends up doing most of, I don't know if the songwriting, but definitely most of the singing, and they tried too much, and it didn't have that essence. But this album, I was telling you, Oceans Will Rise is their third and last album. I actually listened to this more because it has the elements of Logic, but this is definitely poppier. It's more drive, and this is something you play in the car and just, it's awesome. And this goes back to where they were. And it was just one of those things where I felt like they just weren't meant to be. And it just made no sense to me. Even the critics that did like them didn't speak up for them. I've heard somebody recently say that, and it may have been Steve Kilbey sarcastically saying, I've heard so many people influential people that come, and I'm not going to name any names, that say, I love your band. Your band is one of my favorite bands. And he goes, well, how about telling other people about it? Like, how about, how long I've been doing this? A long time. way too long. So maybe you could tell people about it. And believe me, I do. I talk about the church all the time. I want to talk about bands like this. I'll say this and we'll move on because I don't want us to run too long. But it's a shame because when a band does this and they have a run and you're just like, man, you love them, but then they're now defunct and they have been since. It's hard to come back to a band like that. You really have to have the love and the obsession that we have. And that's why I do come back to this. I will listen to Logic Will Break Your Heart and Oceans Will Rise once or twice a year.
I need to get back in the mode. I love Logic. I think that was one that, along with, in a similar time frame, the Idlewild album. Not that they sound alike, but I always think of them because that early 2000s, I was obsessed with that record as well. I thought it was brilliant. And then, I think I listened to the second album and didn't like it, and then just fell off of the wagon. I don't know that I've ever listened to that third record that you're referencing, Oceans Will Rise. I just pulled it up on my phone in Apple Music to remind myself to play it tonight. So I'm gonna
Listen,
go check it out tonight.
the song off that album to listen to, Snow in California, is
Okay,
just brilliant. That
I'm
to
on it.
me is the epitome of the Stills. But yeah, good stuff.
All right.
Well, how about you? What you got for
Okay,
me?
so I've got two physical ones left, and I'll go ahead and show this one first because I've talked about this guy, and you've turned me on to a lot of good music, and you get a lot of credit for stuff. I think I actually turned you on to this guy, and I tell everyone who loves music, this is one do not pass up on. Freddie Johnston,
Sure.
This
Yep.
Perfect World.
Yep. You
This
turned me on.
record, oh my gosh, I love this record so much. I just saw him in concert a couple of months ago. He was so close to breaking big. He was on Bar None Records. He was so close to breaking big. He had Butch Vig was coming off of producing Nevermind and Siamese Dream, and this was his next. I think his next production gig was this record.
Wow.
It has the bass player from Joe Jackson's band. They went all out on this record. I think Marshall Crenshaw guest on this record. The songwriting, as you know, is so good. It's such a it's just such a well-written album, and it's sort of a song cycle. The Can't Sink This Town. Bad Reputation was so close to being a hit.
It should have been. Yeah.
It should have been a hit in a perfect world. I played it for my son recently. He went to see him with me. He's 19 and he is obsessed with that song now too. He said, "How is this not a hit? How did this song not make him famous?" And I said, "I've been asking myself that question for 30 something years." But for anyone that loves, it's very it's a very personal album to me. It's well produced, but it still feels very intimate and personal,
Yep.
even though there's other instruments in there. But it's such a great, well written record. Not a bad song on the record. So, Freddie Johnson, This Perfect World.
Awesome. Good call. You reminded me of another album that's not on my list that could have easily made my list. So maybe you can remind me at the end of this and I'll mention it.
Okay.
there's a reason why they tie in too. Okay. My next album, number 3, just edged out the Stills, but they were released about the same time. This was a little bit later in 2004. I swear I sold more of this CD at my store. It was on TVT Records, which is no more. I think that was the label that did Madonna have some ownership of that? I can't remember. But I was obsessed with this record. We went to see them live. They were excellent, and they just never took off. They only have one album. It's their only full-length album, and that's the band Ambulance Ltd. And the album is called LP. For years I called it Ambulance Limited. This is what I called them, and apparently they wanted to be referenced Ambulance Ltd. Um, Dude, this album is just to me. It was a cross between the Stills, Interpol. It was shoegaze. It was dark. It had a little bit of goth tinges to it, but they had such a pop backbone in their nature. Just that's how they wrote. Every single song in this thing is brilliant. And what really sealed the deal for a buddy of mine, he went with me to see him at the Earl, and they did a cover of "Fearless" from Pink Floyd, which is off of Metal, and their version of "Fearless" was almost as good. He's like, "Holy crap! Like this is so good." It was just so well done. So, yeah, Ambulance Ltd. I had a stack. I had a promo guy that brought promotional CDs to me on occasion. He goes, "I got this one thing. I can't sell it. We can't move it. Nobody knows of it. Nobody else is doing anything to promote it except for us, so see what you think." I threw it in and I go, "Holy crap." And he came back in and go, "How many do you have?" He goes, "I have an entire box." And a box, I think it was a sleeve of like 30. I swear I sold, and I did not have a lot of people coming to my store. I swear I sold all of those within 2 weeks.
Because you were playing it and they heard it and went,
Yeah,
"I need that."
I'll
Yeah.
take it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that album, not on vinyl. So the Archer Pruitt Wilderness and the High Dials War of the Wakened Phantoms are the only ones that aren't available on. This is the one. If that gets re-released, if our record store days does it, I don't care what it costs, I'm buying it. because I just don't think when it does get reissued, it won't get reissued again. So one and done.
Yeah, one and done. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't know anything about them. I know I've seen the album. I've never listened to it, but I got to check it out. I got to listen to the Stills tonight because I got to. Now I'm thinking, oh, I missed that record, but I'll check out Ambulance Ltd. Okay, next for me, this one's really a surprise, probably, and you may know this band, but you may have never really thought much about them. And I forget if it was either CMJ, because CMJ magazine used to also include a CD, and I used to get that one. It was either on Uncut. I think it was Uncut, 1998. The band is called Midget. Did you ever listen to them?
Never heard of them.
They had a record called Jukebox, 1998.
Huh.
And if I'm not mistaken, they were really young. I want to say they were 16, 17, 18 years old. So kind of like Silverchair, really young.
Yeah.
But they were, and it's funny because half of the record is pure power pop and the other half is more punk pop. The pure power pop songs, it's almost every other song, just absolutely amazing. They're such a fun band to listen to. If you like the jam, you like that's more of the punk pop sound, but then they do some power pop. They're definitely a UK band, I'm almost certain. I haven't listened to this actually in a long time, but when I was thinking of records that no one's ever heard of, I figured that would be one that maybe you hadn't even had a chance to listen to. But so good. But that I didn't listen to their other stuff after that, but check out the album Jukebox. You're gonna love it. It's such a good power pop, punk pop record from '98.
I will add that to the list. That's awesome. That's the first surprise so far. That's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Well, this won't surprise you. I think maybe it'll surprise you because of where I have it positioned. I had a customer of mine who became a good friend of mine, Derek Black, introduced me to him, and he goes, "This band is the best band you've never heard of." And I don't know, dude. That's a bold statement. He was right. That's the Glands.
Oh yeah,
self-titled album from 2000. Athens band.
Yep.
These guys, in fact, they were so unassuming. I think two of them worked at the Grit. I'm telling you, this album is an absolute masterpiece. Probably one of the best. The only time I ever wrote a review online, I was writing for, it started out as a text message type thing for services for concerts. And so it had to be a certain amount of characters. And then it meandered. And then they said, okay, now we're going to do proper reviews. Or then I think I ended up being turned on to another publication called Examiner, which was online only. And I wrote a review of this for Examiner. It's my most proud review ever because I literally did a song by song synopsis. I'm telling you, it's fucking hilarious. Pardon my French, but it's the best writing I've ever, because I'm not a good reviewer. Pitchfork is so anti-me. I put it in layman's terms. I'm not going to have you looking things up in a dictionary, looking up. That's just not my take. I literally went song by song, and by the end of it, I go, I got to listen to this album. It is absolutely brilliant. I would say it's the perfect blend of Pavement and the Kinks. Those are the two bands I would categorize. I can't pick a single song off this record. Listen to the whole damn thing from start to finish.
Yeah, just don't skip. Yeah, it's funny. Like you said, they're from Athens. I live here. I go to the record stores in Athens, and one particular record store I go to, those guys have been in business for 30 years. They listen to music all day. They're inundated with stuff, Athens and beyond. And one of the guys that worked there says his favorite record ever is that record. Yeah. I mean, so that says enough. Well, I've got a good segue for you because I'm going to talk about an Athens band, and you probably won't be surprised. You've heard me talk about this before, but Dream So Real, Rough Night in Jericho, nice. 1988, Arista Records. Real quick history on them. They're an Athens band. Their first record was on Coyote Records. It was an independent label produced by Peter Buck. It was called Father's House. So Peter Buck from REM produced their first record. They were featured in a movie or a film about Athens, Georgia's music scene called Athens, Georgia Inside Out. So they had a chance. And when REM got big, the record labels flooded Athens trying to find the next REM.
Yep.
Dream So Real sort of could fit into that, but they were a little different. They were a little more, had more of a 60s sound. They were more straight ahead rock and roll than even
Yeah.
REM. Guitar oriented, three-piece band. So lead singer also played guitar, bass player, drummer. And they get signed to Arista Records, and you're thinking, okay, these guys have a shot. This album is as perfect a record as I've ever owned. And I've never played an album more than this one throughout my life. When I had it on CD, I used to listen to it every single day. I love the songwriting, everything about this record. You listen back to it now, 1988. Of course, you could pick flaws with the production or the mixing or something, but
Right.
pure songwriting, absolutely perfect album. Dream So Real, Rough Night in Jericho. Unfortunately, they only did 2 major label records. This one and then the follow-up was called Glory Line. My theory is Arista Records signed them in a rush to get an Athens band, and
Mm-hmm.
they were absolutely the wrong label. Should have never signed with Arista. And
Yep.
it's no knock on Arista. That wasn't their forte. They
Right.
did really well. Clive Davis did really well with R&B, and I don't think they knew how to handle and market a rock and roll band. Dream So Real should have been huge. Go listen to Dream So Real. And if you know this for people listening, Jim Blossoms, Toad the Wet Sprocket, all those bands that came about 3 years later all owe some gratitude to Dream So Real, because whether they were influenced by them or not, Dream So Real opened the door for a lot of those straight ahead pop rock type bands. So
Very cool. Yeah, I'm very acquainted with your love of that record, and I
yeah.
totally get it. It's interesting too. I just made this correlation. They don't sound all that dissimilar to early Church. A lot
Yeah. Oh
janglier, a
yeah.
little bit more psychedelic. I
Yeah.
would say, and the reason I bring this up is Church was also on Arista early on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're right. In fact, the song Reptile
Yeah,
could have been a Dream So Real song.
yeah,
I mean, I'd never thought about that before, but it had that psychedelic, but not in a, trippy way, but
yeah,
that psychedelic rock sound that you got in the late 60s, early 70s, jangle pop guitars,
yeah. Very birds
really
like.
good harmonies.
Yeah,
Yeah, very birds like. They did the harmonies on the choruses were always just nailed them. That's a really good point about the Church, and that's probably one of the reasons maybe that they did sign with Arista. Maybe why Arista wanted them, because they could be the American version of the Church. I'd never thought about that. It's a
yeah.
great
I would
point.
say the Blurred Crusade would be the closest thing that's
Yeah.
adjacent to what they're. Yeah, I agree. I think the Dream So Real album is so underrated and overlooked.
Yes.
I don't think it's rated as high as it should be, and it's
No.
definitely overlooked. So that
Yeah.
checks both boxes. All right,
Yes.
so we're wrapping
Last
things.
one.
The last one, and so I brought up the idea of spending whatever I would for the amuleted record because it's one and done. Once they reissue it, they won't do it again. But this one will be, and I say this because I owned this up until about 2 weeks ago, and somebody offered me $200 for it, and I said, "Okay, you can have it." And that is Superdrag's Head Trip in Every Key from 1998. Sophomore album, their first album, Regretfully Yours, is really good. In fact, it has the one and only song that was played on the radio that you would know called Sucked Out, which was awesome and annoying at the same time. Love that song. Love that album. Definitely more shoegazier, a little bit gauzier. This was Head Trip in Every Key was Superdrag doing the Beatles, the Beach Boys. The harmonies were coming out. The songwriting was definitely more pop oriented, but it was heavy. It was the power side of power pop. When they cranked in and did stuff like Bankrupt Vibration and Do the Vampire,
Oh
this
man.
album is just an absolute triumph. It's a masterpiece. Sadly, I think it was during John Davis's not so dry days. He had a little bit of an addiction issue, which he was open about. He has been clean ever since, still doing things with Lees of Memory. They're putting out, I would put Lees of Memory's catalog above Superdrag's, even though Superdrag put out several albums that to me I think are absolute masterpieces. This one and the follow up to being the strongest albums. But this album has never been surpassed. Whenever I want something on the road, it's sunny out, I want to roll the windows down, I can crank up that album and I will literally sing every single lyric off of it. It sounds as fresh as it did in 1998. I just love it. So Head Trip in every key from Superdrag.
What a phenomenal album. John Davis, the dude he can write songs all day.
Yep.
We got to find a way to go see him. They're from Knoxville, Tennessee. You don't live that far.
Yep.
At some point, he'll have to do a show in Chattanooga. You would think he would come through, and I want to see him perform because I love that guy. I love his voice.
Yep.
And I love his songwriting. I'd see him no matter what he's doing, Lisa Memory, Superdrag, whatever. So we got to go check him out.
Yeah, very eclectic taste too. Yep.
Yeah. So the last couple albums that we've done have been more of a southern area because the Glands are from Athens, Georgia. Dream So Real is Athens, Georgia. Superdrag's from Knoxville, Tennessee. Yeah. The last band I'm going to mention is a very obscure band. You know them. People from the South that followed music in the late 80s, early 90s would know this band, especially on the college music circuit. It's a band from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, home of North Carolina Tar Heels, band called Dylan Fence. And I got to spell it because it's not Dylan as in Bob Dylan. It's Dillon, Dylan Fence. 1989, they released, I think it was 6 songs. They released an EP. It is such a great. Are you familiar with Dylan Fence? You know a couple of their later albums on Mammoth Records, right?
Yep.
They got
I had the 2 on Mammoth. Yep.
Okay. Have you ever listened to the EP?
It's great. Yeah.
The original.
I like all their stuff, but that's better. I think. I think a whole album of that would have been phenomenal.
Yes, Ben Franklin's theme. Every song on that record is perfect to me. It's jangle pop at its finest. It's but it's another one of those records that you can just tell when you listen to it. I mean, they were college kids when they did it. I think they were still literally in college at UNC when they recorded that EP. Awesome. And it sounds that youthful exuberance of a few guys getting together and just playing the songs they've been playing in bars for the last year at frat parties. And I got into them and I just love them. Greg Humphreys, who's now doing solo stuff. He also had another band called Hobex. They were really good. But that first Dylan Fence is just amazing. It's self-titled. It's really hard. Right now, there's not even a copy available. You can buy an original OG copy from 89. It's hard to find. There's not even one available on Discogs right now, but I don't own it on vinyl, but I will eventually own that record. Love it so much.
Nice. Yeah. Dig it. So not a single carryover, not a single repeat. This is awesome. That's great.
That's amazing. It's incredible. We came close on a few that we probably your next tier would have been overlapping my next tier. There might have been a few things because I had Superdrag was right there. I'll just say real quickly, not to give it away, but Bash and Pop would have been next for me probably.
Yeah.
I had a few other surprises for you, but that was fun. We could do another version of this down the road. We'll see if we get some good feedback and people enjoy this.
Yeah.
I've got 10 more ready, and I know you do too.
Oh, I've got 30 more records ready.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that all of these are masterpieces. None of the one of us we were just saying these are severely overlooked. Another one I was going to bring up because you mentioned the Freddie Johnston and the bassist, which by the way, the bassist from the Joe Jackson band, one of the best bassists out there. That guy was an absolute beast. If he's still playing, he's still a beast. But there's another record that was released that had a godfather of punk playing drums, and that was Paul Cook played on Edwyn Collins' Gorgeous George.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that did not help the sales of the record. He had a hit with Never Met a Girl Like You Before. So most people don't even know that he sang that.
They think David Bowie sang that song.
Right. That song, and look, it was a hit It was the one and only song that got radio play, and it is brilliant. It is one of the best songs on the album. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. Just listen to the first song. You realize you're in for a different experience off the very first cut, called "The Real Campaign for Rock" or "The Campaign for Real Rock." Oh man, what a brilliant album! But here's the criteria too, and we'll wrap things up because I know we've been running long. But also the criteria too is I didn't want there to be a song that you heard, right? Like none
Right.
of the stuff I feel like that we've selected. Yeah, School of Fish, you may have heard Three Strange Days a long time ago, but
Yeah.
aside from that, I can't think of a single song that was played on the radio
Yeah.
except for that album.
Yeah, the only ones I would have maybe kind of like School of Fish, and honestly, Dream So Real, School of Fish, also not that far off from each other,
No,
both in years and in sort of the sound. If you like School of Fish, you'd like Dream So Real, and vice versa. Rough Night in Jericho got some radio airplay when it came out. Bad Reputation got a little radio airplay for Freddie Johnston, but yeah,
that's
even
it.
that,
Yeah.
the people that are listening probably for the most part wouldn't know those, but I really want to hear from our listeners and send the emails. We
Oh,
miss something. Maybe if they go, hey, what about this artist? Because this is the kind of thing that sparks a lot of conversation. It's can't disagree with it. It's your opinion. It's my opinion. But there's a whole lot of stuff out there that's really obscure that we didn't even touch on. And I've got the list. So maybe in a month or two, we'll do another round of this.
yeah, I
This was
think we
really
should,
fun.
just like we do with our
Yeah.
other list where we're gonna come
Yeah.
back to Rolling Stone that we did last week and do what, 80 down to 61. So,
Yeah.
looking forward to that. But yeah, we should definitely revisit this because I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as I mean, when I look down, I have another tier two, another
Yeah.
10 records that are in tier two that could have easily been in the first tier. So yeah.
Easily,
Yeah.
yeah, and we'll see, maybe next time we may have some crossover, but that's pretty incredible that we did it. I'm
Cool.
thinking for today, since we ran a little long, we won't do uncut today, we'll pick
Yeah.
that back up next week, you agree?
Agreed.
Alright, this was awesome, Craig, thanks for pulling your list together,
You
I
as well.
loved it, I'm so inspired, so thank you everyone for listening, and we will be back next week.
All right, guys. Take care.